All right, part 371, brokers property. Brokers of property. Subpart 8, general requirements, applicability definitions, records to be kept by brokers, misrepresentation, 371.9, rebating compensation, 371.10, duties, obligation of brokers, 371.13, accounting. Subpart B, special rules, household good brokers, and we're going to skip those questions, and we're just going to continue. All right, subpart A, general requirements at 371.1, applicability. The parts apply with the extent of the provided therein. All broker to transportation motor vehicle is defined 371.2. 371.2, define the definite brokers. Mean with the person who, with the competent arrange officer with the range for the transportation property, the authorized motor carrier with the motor carrier with the person who, with employee with the bona fide agent, carriers are not broker with the meaning the section of the range of the other range of the transportation shipment with the authorized transport is with the accepted legally bound with himself with the transport bona fide agent of any person with the part or part of the normal organization of the motor carrier with the performed due for the under carrier the direction pursuant to the pre-existing agreement with the provider with a continuing relationship, including the exercise discretion of any part of the agent allocating traffic between carriers and other brokerage and brokerage services for the arrangement of the transportation of the physical movement of the motor vehicle without the property that can be performed on the behalf of the motor carrier consignor of the consignee. The brokerage service and all for the service performed on the broker half of the consignor and consignee of the motor carrier. 371.30. The records to be kept with the brokers. Brokers shall keep the record of each of the transaction purpose of the section. Brokers may keep the master lift of the consignor with the address of the registration consign number of the carriers rather than repeating the information in each transaction. The record shall show the name and the address of the consignor with the name and the address of the registration number of the originating motor carrier, the bill length of the freight bill with the number of the amount of the compensation received of the broker, the brokerage service performed, the name of the payer with the description of the broker name, non-broker service performed, the connection with each shipment, the other activity amount of the compensation received with the service, the name of the payer with the amount, the name of the freight charge collected with the broker, the date of the payment with the carrier. Broker shall keep the records required for the section of the period of 3 years each period. Each party of the broker's action shall be right to review the record of transaction review to be kept within these rules. 371.7 the misrepresentation. Brokers shall not perform the other in order to perform any brokerage services, including advertising any of the name of the other that which in the registration is issued. A broker shall not directly, indirectly represent an operation to be that of a carrier, and any advertising show the broker status of the operation. 371.9 rebating and compensation. Broker shall not charge or receive compensation for a motor carrier if the brokerage service is where the broker owns or has a material beneficial interest in the shipment. Brokerage is able to exercise control over the shipment because of the broker's own shipper and owns the shipper, or the shipper owns the broker. There is a common two ownerships of the two. Broker shall not give or offer any of the value of any of the shipper, the consignor, of the consignee, of their officers employed with the expense of the advertising items given from the promotional purposes. 370.10 duties obligation of the brokers. The broker acts on behalf of the person bound by the law of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration regulations of the transmittal bill for the payments of the broker must also abide with the law of regulation which apply with that person. 371.13 accounting. Each broker who engages in any of the other business shall maintain the accounts of the revenue expense with the relating to the brokerage portion of his business segregated from its other activities expenses that are common and shall be allocated on an equitable basis. However, the broker must be prepared to explain the basis of the allocation. Subpart B, special rules for household good brokers. 371.101 if operator of the household good broker for the interstate with the foreign commerce of the must I comply with the subpart B of this part, you must comply with all regulations of the subpart if you operate with a household good broker as the offer to serve with the individual shippers. Interstate foreign commerce under the regulations of this subpart do not apply with a household good broker providing services to commercial government shippers and interstate foreign commerce. 371.103. What are the definitions of terms that within subpart Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, FCM, FMCSA, U.S. Department of Transportation, and U.S. Household Goods is the same meaning of this term defined in 375.103 with the subchapter Household Goods Brokers means person other than the motor carrier, any employee with a bona fide agent of the motor carrier with the principal or agent, sells, offers, sales, negotiates, or holds itself out by solicitation, advertisement, or otherwise selling, the providing, the arranging for transportation of the household goods of the motor carrier for the compensation. Individual shippers have the same meaning as the term is defined in 375.103 with the subchapter 371.105. Must I use the motor carrier with the issue of the valid U.S. dot number with the valid operating authority of the issue Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to transport household goods interstate and foreign commerce. You must only act with the household good broker of the motor carrier that has a valid active U.S. dot number and valid operating authority issued by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration to transport household goods interstate with the foreign commerce. 371.107. What information must I disclose in my My Advertisements and Internet Web Homepage. You must promptly display with your advertisement Internet Web Homepage, physical location, street, highway address, city, state you conduct business. You must prominently display the U.S. registration number, the MCS license number issued by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, in your advertisement Internet website web homepage. You must prominently display in your advertisement Internet websites for your status of the household goods broker statement, whether you will not transport individual shipper to household goods, but you will arrange for the transportation of the household goods from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration authorized household goods motor carrier, whose charges will be determined by the published tariff. If you provide estimates on any of the carrier's behalf pursuant to 37113B, you must promptly display in your internet website that the estimate must be based on the carrier's tariff, and the carrier is required to make the tariff available to public inspection upon reasonable request. You may only include in your advertisement for the Internet website the name and the logo of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Authority household good motor carriers within whom you have written agreement as specified in 371.115 of this part. 371.109. Must I inform individual shippers which of the motor carriers I use? We must provide with each for the potential individual shippers with who contact with the list for the all authorized household good motor carriers. You include their U.S. registration number, the MCS license number. You may provide a list of electronically on paper. You must provide each for the potential individual shippers who contact with a statement indicating that you are not motor carrier authorized by the federal government to transport the individual shipper's household goods. You're only arranging for authorized household goods motor and carrier to perform the transportation service, the applicable additional services you provide with the statement electronically or on paper. 371.11.1. Must I provide individual shippers with federal consumer protection information? You must provide potential individual shippers with federal consumer protection information one by the following of the three methods. Provide a hyperlink of your internet website with the Federal Motor Carrier Website Administration containing information in the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration public ready to move, tips for successful interstate move, and your rights to responsibilities when you move. Distribute each of the shippers with a potential shipper at the time they provide the estimate copy of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration publication ready to move tips for successful interstate moves and your rights to responsibility when you move. Distribute each of the shipper to potential shipper at the time you are provided with the estimate copy of the ready to move the tip successful interstate move, the rights to the responsibility when you move as modified with the procedure. Produce authorized lawful to motor carrier with which is intended for the provided shipment under the written agreement under required in 371.115. If an individual shipper is elected to waive physical receipts of the Federal Consumer Protection Information Act and Protection Information by one of the methods described in paragraphs A2 and A3 of this section, that elects for the access of the same information via the hyperlink of the Internet is provided with the paragraph A1 of this section. You must include a clear, concise statement of the written estimate described in 371.13 that the individual shipper expressly agreed to access federal consumer protection information on the Internet. You must obtain and sign dated electronic paper receipt showing that the individual shipper has received both of the booklets that include the, if applicable, verification shipper agreement with access federal consumer protection information on the Internet. You must maintain signed receipt required for the paragraph C of the section in 3 years from the day of the individual shipper signs the receipt. Alright, 371.113. May I provide individual shippers with a written estimate? You may provide each of the individual shippers with the estimate of the transportation accessory old charges. If then provided an estimate, you must be based on the physical survey of the household goods on conduct with the authorized motor carrier on whose behalf the estimate of the provided with the goods are located within a 50-mile radius of the motor carrier's or agent location, whichever is closer. The estimate must be prepared in accordance with it with signed and written agreement as specified with 371.115. Of the subpart, you must base your estimate upon published tariffs of the authorized motor carrier will be transport the shipper to household goods. Shipper may elect to waive the physical survey required with the paragraph A of the section of the written agreement signed by the shipper before the shipment is loaded. Household goods and brokers must explain the physical survey of the waiver of the arrangement with the individual shipper. The plain English physical survey of the waiver agreement must be printed on the written estimate and must be printed no less than 7-point font size and within font typeface universe. Copy of the waiver agreement that must be retained with the addendum of the bill of lading subject to the same record. Inspection preservation requirements are applicable to the bill of lading. You must keep the records of the required with the section for the 3 years following the day that you provide with the written estimate of the individual shipment. Shipper who accepts the estimate and has them procured with the transportation. Part 371, 115. Must I maintain agreements with the motor carrier before providing written estimates on the behalf of these carriers? In order to provide estimate charges for the transportation of household governments, you must do it in accordance with the written agreement required in 375-409, the subchapter. Your written agreement of the motor carrier must include the following items: your broker name and is shown by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration registration, your physical address, your U.S. registration number, your MC license number, the authorized motor carrier's name and is shown by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration physical address, and in U.S. registration number, the MSC license number. A concise, easy understanding statement that will be written estimate individual shipper will be exclusively on the behalf of the authorized household goods and motor carrier, will be based on authorized household goods motor carriers published in tariff, will serve as the authorized household goods and motor carriers estimated purpose of the complying with the requirements of part 375 of the chapter, including the requirements authorized household goods of the motor carrier relinquishing possession of the shipper to unpayment of no more than 110% of the non-binding estimate at the time of the delivery. Your owners and corporate officers, corporate directors' signatures unlawfully represented by your household good brokers operating at the end of the date. The signature of the authorized household good motor carrier's owner of the corporate officer of the corporate director of the lawful representative of the household good motor carrier's operation and date. The signed written agreement with the requirement of the section public information. You must produce it with a review upon reasonable request by the member of the public. You must keep the copies of the arrangement required with the section with the long as provided with the estimates of the half of the authorized household goods motor carrier for 3 years thereafter. 371-117. Must I provide individual shipment within my policy concerning cancellation deposit refunds? You must disclose the permit prominently on your internet website in your agreements with the respective shipper that your cancellation deposit policy for the refunding deposit funds in the event of shipper cancels in order to service before the day of the authorized household goods motor carrier has been scheduled to pick up the shipper's property. You must maintain records show that the individual shipper request for the canceled shipment, the disposition each of the year request for the period of 3 years after the day of shipper's cancellation request refunded. Deposit your records must include proof of the individual shipper the cash and the deposit check with the money order if the financial institute provides documentary evidence or proof that you delivered the refund check of the money order to the individual shipper. 371-121. What penalties may the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration pose for violations of this part? The penalty provision in Title 49 U.S. Standard Code Chapter 149 Civil and Criminal penalties apply to subpart of this penalty do not overlap. Notwithstanding these civil penalties, nothing in this section deprives the individual shipper of any remedy or right of act under existing law. And that was Part 371. 371. Brokers of property.